Live on WFLA Now. This is Run for Fun with running enthusiast Leigh Spann.
All right, welcome back to the Stream Center for this week's episode of Run for Fun. We designed this show to help more people see that running can be a really healthy part of your life. For beginners, we hope we inspire you and keep you from making all the mistakes that we made when we first started. And for those longtime runners, we hope to show you that the balance that you need to keep this consistency going. So I'm your host, Leigh Spann. I'm a meteorologist at WFLA in Tampa, but I'm also an avid runner. And when I first started, not only did I didn't even know what questions to ask, much less who to go to answer those questions. So I was lucky enough to eventually run into and join a group of runners who continue to teach me about how this hobby can be something that is so enjoyable and brings so much joy. And of course, the leader of that group that I ran into, Coach Maria, welcome.
Thank you. How was your weekend?
You know, it was really good. We had a 14-mile run and it was great.
Yeah,
it was hot and humid, and
it was really bad this weekend. And we had a lot of people struggling.
So I felt very good about it. So I kind of started my weekend off on a nice foot. However, then the Georgia football team almost lost to Kentucky, and that ended my night. So, but a win is a win.
It's a win.
We'll take a win.
It's okay. Yeah, it was. This weekend was just kind of a rough weekend. And Cody told one of my clients, Cody from St. Pete Running Company, who we've had on before, he said there's something called a September slump.
Ooh,
and he said he's noticed that people just are so fatigued from the heat and they feel like they really want fall. And then the pumpkin spice comes out, and then the sweaters, people want to buy sweaters. And
your friends up north are cool.
And we're still a summer month. So we're almost there, guys.
We are almost there.
And football's around, and so we feel like we should be making chili and watching football, but not in Florida.
We have to a little bit. Now, I will say, we're going to start notching that humidity down. So as opposed to dew points in the mid and upper 70s, we're going low 70s for the, sort of as the norm in the next couple of weeks.
And that will feel much better to us.
Especially
it will feel much better. It felt better this morning, actually.
Yeah,
it was
I heard that from many people.
Yep.
All right, so what might have made people feel so good, we had the new Boston qualifying times for 2026.
Yes.
But you actually came out on top with this one.
Well, yeah, for the first time ever, because I seem to be aging up every time they bring it back, make it faster, 5 minutes. So I have actually had the same qualifying time ever since I first started qualifying. It's been 3:40 always. This year it was a 10-year jump because I'm 45 now. So I get 10 minutes. So I got 5 minutes this time. So I actually am 3:45. So wow, this is crazy. I have a different Boston qualifying time. But
so, when you see this as a coach, does that are you like, okay?
I'm not going to lie. I did check on some people yesterday. I was like, are you okay? Some people that have been chasing it for a while. And sometimes when you're chasing a Boston qualifier, it can take you 10 years to do it.
Meanwhile, they're changing the times.
Yeah, meanwhile, they're changing the times, and it can be a little bit daunting and frustrating. But the reason I like it is because even though they made the times harder, I would rather them make the times harder and have most people get in than to have a cutoff time that's so, they do the cutoff. And then last year, I think it was 5 minutes or close to 5 minutes, which is why they changed it. All those people that qualified then didn't get in.
Yeah.
And that's lousy to qualify and not get in. It really stinks. So when they make it faster, most people get in the next year.
Well, that's something to look forward to in 2026. Yeah. If you BQ, you get to run Boston as opposed to
it's 2026, so you have a full year to do it. It's not like for this year you still have the same qualifying time, so they're not doing it yet. They came out with enough time for you to alter things. Yes. So don't get discouraged. The reason this is happening is because more people are getting coaches. Mm-hmm. The shoes are getting faster. And we have nailed nutrition. So now more people are actually doing it, mostly because there's more information out there and people are doing better. So that's what comes with this.
People have been listening to our podcast.
Yes, obviously. Everybody's listening to our podcast and just BQing everywhere.
Yes, all right. So you don't have to Boston qualify to join our Leigh Spann Farewell 5K Run for Fun. This will be on October 20th. As you probably, we've talked about it on the show. I'll be leaving WFLA at the beginning of November, and the station has been very nice to tap into something that I love, which is running, and allows me to meet people who I otherwise, they've been watching me for 17 years while I've been here, but I haven't gotten a chance to meet them and talk to them. And so I felt like this was a great way to marry those two things, like getting to meet all the people that have kept me in this job, because I tell them, like, if you didn't watch me, like, they would have fired me a long time ago. Yeah. So I really appreciate everyone watching.
And if you're not a runner, you can come out and cheer.
Yes.
And meet Leigh and come out and cheer, because the people that cheer are just as important as the people that run. We really appreciate people that cheer. So come on out.
And so it's October 20th at Al Lopez Park at 8 a.m. You go to WFLA.com to, search for that, and you can, sign up. But I hope to see a lot of people who have seen me, and I might not have seen them. So again, October 20th, Al Lopez Park. It starts at 8 a.m. It's a Sunday. So get up early, start your day.
It'll be fun.
And we do hope that the whole families come out, which is actually one of the things that we're going to be talking about today, is age-appropriate running for kids. Because, if someone, I know, Maria, your kids have run with you as they aged. And so we wanted to kind of look at how to do that safely. So to do that, we've brought in the professionals. Oh, actually, hi, Sandra. We're going to talk to you in just a little bit. We're not going to talk to you yet. We're going to let's get over here to, there we go, to Dr. Melinda Murphy from TGH and USF Health Pediatrician. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to chat with y'all this morning. And
so I know that, once people find the joy in running, they want to, want their kids to join them. But I always, I'm out on some of these race courses that are long half marathons, 15Ks, and I see young kids, and I always think, is that okay? I just don't know.
Yeah, it's very controversial right now, actually. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you think about it too, Doctor, because I myself, as a coach, don't really like people running, little kids running long distance. Short distance, I think, is fine. But Doc, what do you think? Tell us all the things.
No, I think you're exactly right. And I think running is something that little kids just do as part of their normal day. So I always love going to the malls and watching the kids in the playgrounds, because they just chase each other nonstop. And so running is a form of play for most kids. And it's really core to all of the activities that they do. So a lot of the organized sports that kids are part of, running is really key to. So I'm thinking soccer and baseball and football and all the other different sports that our young kids are playing. As far as when is it okay to start letting them do the longer distances, it's really going to be person dependent. And so we would hesitate to say, like, a little toddler person needs to be running a 5K. I seriously don't think they would do that happily.
Yeah, no, if they're not happy.
When they lay down on the ground and they say they're done, that means they're done. So we would, encourage it, bring the stroller or something if you were going to bring the little kids. Our elementary school kids are more than capable of doing the 5Ks if it's, not their first day running. And so, I think it would be awesome to have them come out for the fun runs and all of that stuff. That's great. As they get a little bit older, so a little bit skeletally mature, so end of elementary, early middle school, usually for most kids, they start doing or tolerating more longer distance runs. So 5, 10Ks, they can start doing the cross-country training, that sort of thing. But it's really going to be individual dependent.
And what kind of, what would a parent be looking out for as far as how their kids are feeling and keeping them injury prone if they're trying to go into those bigger, they're getting a little older now. Okay, now they're going to go a little bit farther, but what should parents be looking for that might mean, hey, man, this is too much, too fast?
So, same as, older athlete or a young adult athlete, it's going to be whether or not they're, complaining or reporting, excessive fatigue or excessive muscle tiredness. We would never want to push a kid to keep running after they say, like, ouch, I'm hurting, I need to stop. Also making sure that they have the right the right gear, right? So we want them to have good shoes, good socks, comfortable clothes, keep them really well hydrated, nutritious snacks before and during the runs, just to keep their energy levels high. And then, in Florida, I'm always about the sunscreen too. So making sure we're avoiding the hottest parts of the day. And if it is super hot, we need to make sure that they're getting adequate hydration frequently and stopping for breaks. Because the whole idea of running as a young person is we want them to have fun, and we want to build a lifestyle where they're really enjoying the sport and not feeling as though they're being made to do something.
Absolutely. I see that a lot. The thing I love about kids running is that as adults, if they're taught properly, I had a girl this morning come to track, and she wanted me to look at her form, and I could immediately tell that she was an athlete as a kid. And it's mostly because kids naturally run correctly. Most kids naturally run correctly. They don't have anything in their head. They naturally know when they're tired. It's kind of like when they're eating, they naturally know when they don't want to eat anymore. So we shouldn't push them to do that either. But like, the kids don't have the outside stuff going on that we do. Oh, we need to push hard. We need to push harder. So let them tell you, and then when they enjoy it as an adult, when they come to me, we don't have to backtrack, which is what I love.
That's really interesting. And also, I feel like we also want to encourage our kids to play a variety of sports, because they're building all those muscles and growing so rapidly compared to the rest of us. And so making sure they're well-rounded athletes in those earlier years too, I think is really important.
Yeah. And actually research supports that they should be doing all sorts of different activities and keeping it fun and not be pushing. We as parents tend to push a little too hard sometimes, but yeah, these kids know how to do it. We should let them do it.
Right. So Dr. Murphy, do you see like injuries in children and young preteens as they try to get into all of these sports? Like what would be some safeguards you can put in place there?
So, thankfully, most children are incredibly resilient, and they recognize their boundaries before they get those overuse injuries. Unless, of course, you're in a situation where there's, bad form or really, really, really strict coaching or something like that. But usually kids will stop before they get into a situation where it's a major injury, unless they're already in those higher level, more competitive sports. The most common things we see would be, they're tired, they're hot, they're dehydrated. They decide that it's not fun anymore. And so that's where we really want to try, at least in that younger age group. So elementary and under, we really want to try and keep it fun and keep the pressure off. Once they start becoming more competitive, if they can have the strains and sprains the same as we can. And so the rest and elevation and compression and all of that stuff is true for little kids or young kids. It's the same as us.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if maybe they got more of the strains or fewer of the strains and the pains that as adults have on a regular basis.
Yeah. Truly, I think it's fewer because they stop.
Yeah, they're like again. They know. I have kind of an interesting question. I as a parent had a daughter who she swam, but one thing when the kids go through puberty, I have noticed, and this is purely anecdotal, that a lot of the kids, especially the runners that are running before puberty, they don't have the hips. They're way less, and they're running all these times on the track, typically in middle school. And you know how puberty happens at every different times and stages. What's happening to a lot of girls is that they're hitting these times that they can't hit after they go through puberty because their hips expand and they weigh more, and they get very discouraged later in high school when they can't hit those times they used to hit in middle school, and there's not a lot of talk around that in puberty. Do you think there's any way to avoid that with puberty, or are there ways to safeguard against that, or maybe we need to teach them more? What do you think about that?
I think it's such an interesting question, and you're very accurate to say that we don't really talk about it very often. Yeah. And I think that's unfortunate, because changing from a childlike body into a more mature female body is normal. That's what it's supposed to happen. And so, of course, that's going to change your aerodynamics and the ability to carry your weight, and everything changes, as we all know, when you go through puberty. And so, I think having a supportive home environment and having, frankly, other goals in addition to sports is really, really critical. And, unfortunately, we do see, a significant number of young women who end up having really impactful health problems related to sports. And so, they're driven, they want to succeed, they want to keep those good times. And so they may engage in really unsafe dieting practices, and they may engage in over exercise, trying to regain something that they feel they're losing sight of. And that's really dangerous long term, because it's the changes that occur during adolescence, or we're building bone density that we keep for the rest of our lives. And we're still developing in terms of our cognitive abilities, and our academics are still happening. And so really encouraging young athletes to embrace those changes, because they may become stronger in other areas. And maybe the thing that they excelled in as a young teenager is going to change. And so now they're going to be really good at a different type of sport. So maybe they were a sprinter before, and now they're better at long distance, or vice versa.
I love that.
Yeah, so
that's great.
I think having supportive coaches and teachers and parents that are really rooting for a healthy young person is really key, and just recognizing that those changes happen, and that's normal, and we expect that.
Now, if you have a kid coming to you that is complaining about things, and you really, as a parent, see a potential, and you're like, oh, how much do you push them and how much do you not? Like, do you see signs, or do you, I'm asking for all the parents out there, not just for me. How much, like a lot of talk is like, oh, kids are just lazy now. And how do you balance that as a parent?
If you figure it out, let me know. I think it's going to be so parent and child dependent, and the relationship that you have with your child is so unique. And so keeping those lines of communication open are probably my number one recommendation, and really knowing, like, because your kid, if it's lazy versus, oh, I'm being bullied, or I'm embarrassed about something that happened. You're as the, I hope I would know that in my kids. I can't speak for everybody, but just maintaining that good communication, and then also knowing their friends and their coaches too, I think is going to be really helpful. Because if you have a young person who was very engaged and very enthusiastic about a certain sport, and then something changes dramatically and now they're not, to me, that would be a red flag to say, like, well, what triggered that change, and kind of do a little bit more investigative work to see whether there was an event or a bully or something that happened that kind of soured the child on their athletic, enthusiasm.
Oh, I love all that stuff.
So I'm going to go the other way and say, what if it's the young person who is wanting to run every morning before school, and they're like, they're very excited about track, and they're very excited about cross country, and as a parent or as a doctor,
you're worried it's too much.
How do you pull?
I've had that too.
Do you have to pull that back? Because what again, developmentally, physically, how bad is that to do overtraining like that?
So our recommendations are that we make sure we get 8 to 9 hours of sleep, and that's even true for high schoolers. And frankly, I don't know how a high schooler is supposed to get 8 to 9 hours of sleep, given all the different responsibilities that our high school kids have. But if our athletics are starting to impact our sleep, or our school performance, or our relationships, then that's a sign that it's too much. And then also having, hopefully they have either good coaches or a primary care pediatrician that can help kind of monitor, because we want to make sure that our weight is in a good place. We don't want to be too underweight, because obviously that's muscle mass and bone mass that we're also losing if we're losing weight, dramatically during a training session or period of training. So we want to make sure that that's being followed closely medically, and then maintaining really good nutrition. I mean, y'all know how important it is to feed the body, because the body is the engine. You have to put fuel in the body to keep going. So making sure that they're maintaining good nutrition during all of that. So it's a balance. And I think,
sure is.
Some years of school, they may be able to do more, and then other years it might have to, back off a little bit, depending on the academic rigor that they're engaged in, or the different activities that they have in addition to their sport.
I love that you say that, because I say that to my adults all the time. I'm like, if your outside work life is too much, you might have to not marathon train for a little bit. If it's less stressful, then you can marathon train. But we as adults struggle with it. So I can't imagine how kids feel when, they got all this stuff coming at them. Sometimes I think I see these parents that are like pushing their kids and I'm like, would you make yourself do that? Because a lot of, it's kind of crazy what we expect of kids in a lot of ways now.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
And, before, more into that 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old ages, is there something that boundaries that we should put on intense exercise like that? Because I don't really know the ages of kids. I don't have kids, so I'm like,
that's a good time
middle
frame.
school. I mean, I get like junior high and high school age in my head, but that age when they're kids, but they're not really kids anymore, like that kind of confuses me.
It is that middle school age, yeah.
And honestly, like my oldest son's in 5th grade right now, and the variability in development in his class is really shocking. And so there's some kids that are like almost as tall as I am, and I'm a normal sized person. And then there's kids that look like they're like, a little bit younger, and they're all in the same class and they're all the same age. And so it's going to be very different for every child. And so if you have a child that is, growing rapidly and is really like now they're wearing, adult size clothes and adult size shoes, then we could safely say that they're probably ready to start doing, more longer distance stuff if they are interested. So again, that goes back to the 10-year-old who maybe is in a body that looks like they're a teenager, but they're still a 10-year-old and they still act like a 10-year-old. So it may be harder to get them to run very far.
Well, I tell the story a lot, but my kids, when they did competitive swim when they were in middle school and loved it. Like they were swimming hard every day. And I felt like as a coach, it was too much. And then my aunt was like, are you sure they're not going to get burned out? And I'm like, no, they love it. They love it. Cause they were just loving it.
Yeah.
And they got burned out. So I was like, oh, what could I have done? I'm always thinking, what could I have done so they didn't quit sophomore year? Cause they were just like done with swim. They were like, I don't want to do this every day. What can we do to safeguard against that when we're trying to let them take the lead? Because I was not a pusher, but they wanted to go. I never had to ask them to go to practice. You know me. I would take them out sometimes even because I'm like, this is ridiculous, but they still got burned out. How do we avoid that?
I don't know.
Do I have too many questions? Are you done with my questions now?
I think it's such a good question. And my brother and sister swam in high school, and kind of the same thing. Like they were all into it, but then when they got to college, it was like, nope, they're done. Yeah. And just living in the household with them at the time, it was really interesting because they loved it. But I think maybe part of it too could have been the socialization. Yeah. Maybe I mean, it is a sport where everything is muted. Your eyes are muted. Everything's muted. Yeah.
You can't. Yeah. It's not like you're hanging out with people, but yeah, it might just be a high burnout sport.
Well, yeah, and it could, I did things in middle school that I didn't do in high school. I was involved in band in high school, in college, and not in high school. So it might just be.
And now my kids are both runners. They love running now. So it happens, but it's just.
But at least they're still active. I mean, I think that's the great thing for both of them is that they're still embracing athletics and exercise and have a healthy lifestyle.
And that's what I think is the coolest thing about our kids. Like I want them, in general, to love the way exercise makes us feel. Like not because we want to be competitive, not because we want to beat everybody, but I want these kids to grow up and have lifestyles like we do, where we're like, oh, we're running, we're having fun, we're playing with our friends still, even when we're adults.
I've not thought about that. That's probably why I like this so much.
So I feel like if we had that mentality as parents of like, let's just make exercise fun so that they want to continue to do it later in life.
Right.
I don't know. Might be too simplistic, but I like simple.
No, I think simple is probably the right way to go. Yeah. I have a great friend who lives up in the Pacific Northwest, and she takes she's always hiked very long distance hikes and kept doing it even when her daughter was born, and would just carry her in a backpack. And I just thought she was crazy. But now her daughter is also doing these like really, really strenuous long distance hikes, and it just comes naturally, and it's what we do for fun. And I just think it's so adorable. I tried to do that with my kids, they would, they just lay down and say no.
Yeah, no, it depends. It does depend on the kid for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And, and so going back to just sort of this, I guess, red flags that you see, as a doctor, do you, when kids come to you, is there something that, that lets you know that something is wrong in regards to exercise?
I think the child that complains of a very specific injury, and then that keeps coming up, and I'm thinking more so about, that elementary age that you had brought up a few minutes ago. So that 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old who is starting to engage in more longer distance runs, perhaps, but if they're, telling their mom or telling the doctor, like, my right ankle really hurts, like this is, and we've done the conservative stuff, and we're doing, we gave them a break, and we all of that stuff, and they're still reporting that they do get stress fractures, same as we can. It's not as frequent though as a more mature skeleton does, because their bones are still a little bit more flexible. It's hard to think of bones as being flexible, but they have a little bit more resilience and bounce than mature bones do. But they still could have more serious injuries. And so if they're really telling you, like, this hurts, listen to them and bring them and go get them checked out. We have some great sports medicine docs in the community, and even, I would say start with your pediatrician first, and then, we have other resources in the community too. If it's like a really painful injury and they're like really either not able to bear weight or really just not acting themselves, we'd want to see them in the, probably an ER sooner than later. But for most of those injuries, you can start with your pediatrician.
That's a good place to start. I have one more question. I promise it's not mean.
Okay.
What about weightlifting? Because I've seen a lot of kids in the gym lately. Because I'm at the question. Yeah, I'm always cognizant of it as a coach. But I've seen some middle school kids like lifting weights in the gym at the Y, because I go to the Y. And what do you suggest with weight training?
So I am not an exercise physiologist, and so I'm gonna just rely on the training that I received as a pediatrician, and that is that we try to avoid really heavy weightlifting and getting like big muscles until we're fully grown. And the idea behind that is that if you have, really bulky, strong muscles that overpower the bone, you have the potential of decreasing your ultimate bone length and growth.
Oh, interesting.
I think that would take a lot of weightlifting.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably safe to do smaller weights, more reps, in those kids that haven't
and body
stopped
weight
growing
things
yet.
like
And
body weight
then
stuff.
with a coach, you can start doing the bigger weights and start, working on getting those bigger muscles.
And when kids go through these growth spurts, you're saying, they went from being, some kids look like children and some in the same grade look like sort of full grown people. Is there something during that growth spurt that you should be on the, not doing or doing to make sure that they are developing in this very rapid way very well?
So sleep and nutrition are always my go-tos. So making sure that they get all that rest and all the good fuel that their body needs to support that growth. The most common thing we see in kids who are going through a growth spurt is growing pains, and those are real, and it really does hurt. And so you might have like pain in your shins or pain in your thighs. Usually it's bilateral. Usually it happens at night. Reassurance, warm baths, Tylenol, Motrin sometimes can help. It's usually very short-lived. Things that we would worry about or be more concerned about is the pain that wakes a child up from sleep, or unilateral pain, so pain that's really bad on one side and it's consistently bad on that side. Those are reasons that you'd want to get checked out. But I'm not aware of any particular exercise that needs to be avoided or decreased during growth spurts. It's fine to keep moving because their mechanics are changing constantly. So we keep them moving, but we just don't want to push them beyond what they feel comfortable doing.
And what is that range that they like? I have to ask this for my 22-year-old who's still hoping that he's going to grow. What is the age range where they're like fully developed mostly? I know it's probably very individual, but is there a range that's typical?
Usually boys will reach their maximum height around 21, 22.
Oh, poor Sam.
Sorry, Sam.
He's 5'10". He's really hoping for a few more inches.
5'10" it's very fine.
Oh, but I didn't realize they still kept growing that long. That's good.
Mm-hmm. And then girls, usually it's a lot younger. So 15, 16, 17 is typically where they reach their maximum height.
Interesting.
My husband grew almost a foot between junior and senior year in high school.
Yeah.
He was 5'4".
Sam just kept hoping for it. He keeps hoping.
Well, sorry, Sam.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right. So one of the reasons why, Dr. Murphy, we had you on is because coming up this weekend is the Zoo Tampa Fun Run for Kids. And that's why we're going to bring in Sandra Morrison from Zoo Tampa. So this is for the little kids, right? So tell us a little bit about what we can expect.
So this is our second, actually, the Kids Fun Run that's presented by Muma's Children's Hospital, TGH. And yes, it is for kids, so it's safe.
Yes.
There's a 2K, there's a 1K, there is a diaper dash, and a toddler trot. So it's, for the little kids. Parents can, be with their kids for the toddler trot, the diaper dash, and the 1K. But it's all in a safe environment. It's fun. You're surrounded by furry friends. I mean, and it's and it's also a little component to get them into, to start fitness. And so, but all of it is safe and just, it's a great time for families to enjoy and enjoy, being outdoors together.
That sounds like a blast. Can I do it?
Yeah.
You can come, yes. You can.
I probably have to have a diaper dash baby with me, but
no.
You can be an adopted parent for
they're
somebody.
so cute.
Yeah.
We have a cheering section too.
I bet it's so cute.
So do people pay to go into the zoo, or is this separate from the admission price?
So the kids can register, the parents can register the kids, and they'll all get a free complimentary admission to the zoo.
Oh, how fun.
So, and then they get a race bib, a medal, a customized T-shirt, a sling bag with goodies. So,
I'm sure they love it.
So what animals will they be running by?
Well, we start right where when we first, the entrance of the zoo, and there'll be Manatee Circle. That's where the water fountain is, and they'll pass by our tapirs, our Komodo dragons, our orangutans. So they'll get to see a couple of the zoo animals.
And so the diaper dash. So are they crawling still, or is this walking?
So the diaper dash is for up to 2 years old.
Okay, up to 2.
And that's why we have the parents there to help them along. And it's crawling and walking and jogging and running. So whichever way you get to the finish line.
That sounds fun.
And then how old does the 2K, is that the longest?
Yes, it's 2K.
Yeah. So how old are the kids?
On average, we had kids that were between 5 and I believe 9 and 10.
Okay.
So,
and Dr. Murphy, you're signing off on this because it's fun and it's you're running by some orangutans. I mean, who doesn't like that?
It's so much fun. It was last year was our first year, and we just had the best time. I wasn't expecting it to be as fun as it was. And so both my kids are running the 2K this year, and they're already excited about it and debating whether or not they should get lost. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. You have to keep running. But there are people along the racetrack keep pushing them along. So.
mm-hmm.
You got to get the medal, and then you can go back, and then you can get lost.
That sounds very developmentally healthy, though, for those kids.
They can get all lost together as a family.
Yeah.
And why is it important for the zoo, for Zoo Tampa, to promote this healthy lifestyle?
Well, it's an invitation basically to get out there and, be out in nature and connect with wildlife and then connect with each other. So that's basically what our mission is about. But then also, we also have a trail at the zoo that is also with the Muma Children's Hospital. So it's about 2-mile trail. So it's be able, parents and children are able to connect to wildlife and nature and be outdoors. So that was the big thing, a lot of people ask when COVID was happening, the zoo didn't get that impacted by other, organizations or institutions because we were outdoors and families were outdoors enjoying nature and wildlife. So it's a way to connect. It's safe, and who doesn't want to connect with furry friends?
And little scaly ones like the Komodo
Oh,
dragon.
come on, Leigh. I'll stay away from that.
You'll just run. You'll make you run faster.
You'd be
I kind of-
surprised
I
how
just-
many people love the Komodo dragon.
Oh gosh, not me. I just love that's the mission, because we see all these kids that are just spending way too much time indoors, and I think it's great to get them out there. Nature is such a healing place to be for adults too. Get out there too.
Yeah, that's yes, and and we do have a lot of these structured exercises. So kids are in sports. We're doing our runs, but like to just go on a hike through the zoo seems like a really good way to
Yeah, like I kind of want to do it now. Like, Sandra, when are you taking me through that hike, on the 2-mile hike? I want to go on that.
Invitation is open any day you want.
So how can people get involved with the kids fun run?
They can visit our website, so www.zootampa.org, and then they can click where it says events and just register their children. We're also going to have on-site registration starting at 7. The races start at 7:30, so 7:30, 8, and 8:30. But there's still time that if they haven't registered, they can go on race day and register on site. And then another thing is also with the race, we also have a race event expo at our Saunders Pavilion, and a lot of the experts from Muma's Children's Hospital are going to be there to give parents tips, pediatric experts to give them tips about, fitness and everything. So it's just an all-day fun event.
So if they get that admissions pass, does it only count for that day, or can they use it at another time?
The complimentary, they can use it if some of them are members, they can use it another day,
Okay.
but most of them probably will use it that day.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's Saturday.
Saturday, September 21st.
All right. Dr. Melinda Murphy, we really appreciate your insight, because again, a lot of
I get a lot of those questions,
know
so
that
I
Maria does.
appreciate it.
that it is, it is very kid dependent, but that's why you meet with your doctor. That's why you know your kids and how they're, so that we're not doing anything too harsh, but also allowing them, if they love it, to do it.
And coaches, I'll talk to you too. Try to keep it fun. And if you don't have the tools in your toolbox to get them out of a slump, or ask some other coaches, ask some pediatricians, go out and ask questions, read some books, because we don't want to hurt our kids and not want them. We want them to be active in their adult life too. So let's not overdo it. As coaches, it's a big responsibility.
All right. Any final words, Dr. Murphy?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I have to say, I feel like I started my big girl job around the same time that you came to WFLA, and it was always such a pleasure to get up in the morning, and you were already bright and articulate and beautiful. And so it's really great to meet you, and I wish you well with your next big venture. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much. That's very sweet.
We're all going to miss Leigh.
Yeah.
Let's not get teary-eyed today, guys.
No, we still have a couple more weeks and a couple more months. So, but thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for Sandra, for making this such a joyful thing for kids to want to play and want to run and want to be active. And we just want to do it in the most healthy way possible.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.